Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to State of the Division AL West Edition, Episode 10. I feel like that's some sort of milestone we should celebrate. We got that, and we're recording on Just Baseball's birthday. Happy birthday, JB. So 1 year birthday for justbaseball.com. Started from the bottom, and now we're here, so they say. I'm trying to be culturally relevant with a lyric from a song from a long time ago.
Trying to be relevant today with something that happened 2 years ago.
All right, here we go. But happy birthday, Just Baseball. But we're excited to be a part of the team, excited to bring you guys the State of the Division for the AL West. As is customary for us, we will run through the divisional standings, the power rankings, give out our MVPs, and talk a little bit of news and notes of what went on. I'm T. Wright. I'm with my co-host, Kendall McKee. Let's get going. All right. So no change in at least the order of the standings. Houston sits atop of the AL West at 42-25 after a really solid week. At least in terms of how we record. They went 5-1. Texas holding on to that second spot at 32-35, though sliding further and further back. They're 10 games back now, 3-4 on the week. The Angels at 33-38, 11 games back. Seattle at 30-39, 13 games back, and Oakland at 23-46, a whopping 20 games back, and we're not even to the halfway point. So the gap is widening. Astros are slowly taking command of the division. Every team this past week had a losing record, except for Houston. Houston actually now has the third best record overall in baseball. Certainly looks like they're going to be the only team that comes out of the division come playoff time. Texas is 5 games back in the wild card, but I just don't see them making a push at all to overcome maybe a Tampa Bay or a Boston. AL West is the only division in baseball without a second team above 500, which again further supports the idea that I think this division sucks. So, Kendall, give us your power rankings after that rosy review of the standings for this week.
Yeah. Yay. I think this division sucks. I do think this division is underperforming. I'll put it that way. I think there's good baseball left in this division, and I think it will challenge the AL East as the AL East, AL West series get more prominent later in the year. And I think, it wasn't too long ago, actually, that Baltimore and Boston were they were a lower record than Oakland, so it's just like, okay, do we take this in perspective, or is this just shaking out to be what we thought it was going to be? And I would say this is just what it is, this is the division right now. I thought this division was going to have 3 teams that were going to push for a playoff spot. And honestly, Astros are awesome, but you could make the point that they're just the best of the worst, that they're just crapping on all of us.
They're playing a lot of weak opponents.
They get a lot of cupcakes, so if we look at strength of schedule, how does that play in? Now, I'm not going to take that argument. I think the Astros are here to stay. I think they're here to be a playoff spot and go forward. But anyway, do you want to dive in before you want me to jump into my power rankings, or I've totally lost vision when I just...
Oh, you're good. Yeah, go to your power rankings, and then we'll move on to MVP and LVP.
I actually had a small switch up, or some switch up again in those middle 3. I think probably for the rest of the year, it's going to be Astros, middle 3, Athletics. And it's just going to be, where is this middle 3, and can one of them shake out to just maybe creep up to that wild card spot or not? I think it's possible, but I don't think it's likely at this point. Astros number 1, obviously. Number 2, I have the Angels this week. So they flopped Texas and Angels this week. And then so the Angels move up 2 spots this week to the 2nd spot from the 4th spot. And then I have Texas coming down to 3, M's coming down to 4, and the A's going down, or they're still in the 5th. Primarily that is because of that Mariners Angels series that we talked about briefly last week, where they had 5 games over the weekend. They both played 7 games, or actually the Angels played 8, depending on how you look at what the week is from Wednesday to Wednesday when we record this. And the Rangers and the Angels had the same 500 record on the week, but the Angels beating the Mariners 4 times out of 5. I was just like, okay, I'm going to take that as like they upped the Rangers this week. Although I do think that it's close. But with Mike Trout doing what he did this week and with Shohei doing what he did last night, I mean, like, he almost had a chance for the AL record RBIs when he came up in the 11th last night. I mean, it was just in one game, and that's just, you can't fade that, and I think this team has a chance to figure out what they're doing. In terms of transactions and stuff, there's a lot of stuff going on, but let's push it back to you. How do you see that Astros, Angels, Texas, M's, A's?
No, I think that's fair. I don't really have a problem with that order at all. It's very clear to me that this has become just a one-horse division. So now all the other teams are just kind of playing around, deciding who's the best of this really mid group.
Arguably, though, I don't think it's worse than the AL Central. I mean, the AL Central is pretty bad.
Yeah, but they still have, I think, 3 teams that are above 500, if I remember correctly. Maybe
they have a team. They have 1 team that is 500 and 2 above.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, I mean, if you're going to look just strictly on,
they have more top end, but more low end too.
Record, so yeah. I almost would keep Texas at the number 2 spot in my mind. But maybe it's just because I'm so disappointed in the Angels.
Yeah.
And that's just some sort of like subjective, I don't know, subconscious thing that's going on where I'm like, I'm just so mad at them for not being able to put it together. But still, whatever. 2A and 2B, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Either way, they are not good.
Right. Yeah. So, no problem at all with your power rankings. If you got anything else on team notes or whatever, spew them now, or we'll move on to MVP and LVP of the week.
Yeah, I do have some team notes on each team. I think I'll just keep it pretty brief this week because there's a lot of stuff that just doesn't really matter that you can talk about with these teams. I'll just start with the A's. Jimenez is injured, which is probably their like brightest piece right now. He got injured this week he's the closer for A's, probably gets moved in the off season or in the mid season when we move Montas and Lariano. I'd imagine Jimenez gets moved as well, probably in one of those deals to get more prospects from another team. But he received a small injury this week. Seth Brown and Sean Murphy continue to be playing well. Sean Murphy with a 263 ISO that's pretty good. And then Bethancourt returns to earth with a -77 WRC plus and a 50% strikeout percentage. I just had to add that, because that's what we expected from Christian Bethancourt, as he's been the world traveler and, taking 2 years off the MLB doesn't make you all of a sudden good at baseball. So I'll just quickly go into the M's. They had a lot of stuff go on this week. They transferred, I think the most pressing thing, and I think I've said this all year long, Mitch Haniger gets shifted to the 60-day DL. They don't think he'll be back anytime soon. And I think that's really sad. Winker signs a 2-year extension with the M's. I like that move. I think it's some stability when there's some instability in this franchise. Justin Upton, they finally are choosing to just go to him instead of doing this Taylor Trammell experience. I like that. I think Taylor is toast. He's clearly been on a bunch of minor league rosters at this point, and he's just not making it. Ken Giles is up. He's a good reliever, and they send Sergio Romo packing. Unfortunately, Sergio Romo been in a major league uniform for a long, long time. I love his little quirkiness, but he is currently without a team, and that's unfortunate. I did not like how they showed up against LA. But I will say the one win they did get, Robbie Ray went 7 innings pitched, 10 strikeouts, and 1 earned run. So if you're gonna have a horse, he might as well be able to win you a game in a 5-game series. And unfortunately, nothing else. Which brings me to Texas. They had a lot of moves this week too. Smith and Garver off the DL. They had some COVID issues that they figured out. Seager is playing really well, and I'm sure you'll mention that at some point. But it's finally, like when you see a guy with a 279 WRC plus and a 25% walk ratio, I like seeing that, especially from a guy who's going to be your leader for the next forever because you're paying him, $500 million or whatever it is. I also think, interestingly enough, we traded Trevino for Albert Abreu to the Yankees, and then we dropped Albert Abreu, and then the Yankees picked back up Albert Abreu. So essentially, we sent Trevino and gave Albert Abreu a vacation for a couple of weeks and got like a bag of potato chips for that. That sucks, but it is what it is.
Depends on the chips.
What did you say?
So it depends on the brand of chips.
Depends on the chips. If they're Grippos, then I might be in. And then Houston, well, I've talked a little bit already about the Angels. The only thing I want to say is that I think there's a big question mark with, will Shohei be able to stay on this roster? Is he going to get traded? They can't pay for Trout, Rendon, and Noah and Shohei. You just can't. And so that is looming. Rendon did the 60-day DL. I feel bad for the guy, but the Nationals, there was this thing of like, do you pick Rendon or Strasburg? And now both of them are shells of who they used to be. So take that for what it is. But Trout has been great. Shohei has been great. And so I think they're still underperforming though, which is sad. And then Astros, your daddy Alvarez, which is what I've been able to call him recently, is a manimal. So he had 6 RBIs on the week and they played 5 games. So that's pretty good. When you have more RBIs than games, that's great. And then I just want to point out that Pena being on the DL, I'm not worried about it, but it just sucks when you want to watch a guy who's going to be a potential rookie of the year being on the DL. And then your man Yuli Gurriel, 5% walk rate. And they went 4-1, but against a bad White Sox team, so I'm not really exactly sure. I don't know. I really want to see this team play New York. I really want to see them really go up against Cleveland's pitching, or something like that. I'm just not bought in fully to the Astros yet because I think they might be the best of the worst.
Yeah, that's true. But hey, I mean, they didn't go 3-2 or 2-3. They went 4-1, which is what
that's fair.
So you got to take care of the lower tier teams in decisive fashion, which I think they're doing, which gives you kind of a foretaste of the fact that when they do play these bigger name teams, they're going to be very competitive. But
interestingly enough, I found a weird caveat today that the Kansas City Royals are abysmal. They're 25-42. They are just inches away from being Oakland at this point. And they actually play the West very strong. And so outside of the 4 losses they took to the Mariners in like the first series of the year when Bobby Witt was not playing well, they are 6-4. And the 4 losses they have are against Houston and Texas. So it's like they're doing some work on us. And I feel like that has a lot to say about where this division is. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. Good nugget there. All right, let's move on to the MVP and LVP discussion. For me, it was kind of a 2-horse race, maybe 3-horse, especially after what Ohtani did last night. But it was one of the few weeks. I mean, I didn't have just a bunch of people at the top, but the 2 guys that I kind of keyed in on were Trout and, of course, Corey Seager. So Seager had a fantastic week, hit 3 bombs, slash line of 333, 500, 889. Like you mentioned, a WRC plus of 279. Exactly what you want from what you said, your superstar, your $300 million man. So Trout, equally as impressive in some regards. He had 5 home runs, drove in 9, had 3 consecutive games with a home run, WRC plus of 189. But I think Seager had the more all around week, the more consistent week. Trout had 5 bombs, but he only had 7 hits in his 36 plate appearances. So, and he struck out nearly 40% of the time. And as you know, I'm just not a fan of a super high K rate. And Seager had a really good, I think, just all around fantastic week, hit well. So Corey Seager is going to walk away with the MVP for the state of the division, AL West this week. LVP.
Let me pause for a second.
Yeah,
I think I agree with you. So Trout had incredible numbers, but when you look at him at the plate, he doesn't look like himself yet.
We barely hit over 200 for the week. I mean, he was 7.6.
I'm still a little worried about him. I think I don't know. There just seems to be something else going on with Trout. Like, cool, you can look at his numbers and he's playing well, but like it feels like there's something going on. And maybe there's not. Maybe that's just me like being scared that my Bowman Chrome is gonna go down in value. But like I watched him yesterday in that game, and his late inning at bats. I mean, I think he went 0-5 last night, and I think his late inning at bats were like he swung at a ball. I was like, Mike, you don't swing at that. You've always been a completely disciplined hitter. Yeah. And it was just a 2-seamer that ran way inside, almost at his shins, and he just swung at it like golfing at it like Vladdy Senior.
Yeah,
I was like, that's not Trout, So I don't know. I'm concerned.
No, it's maybe warranted. LVP, there were a few more candidates for this award. Unfortunately, Elvis Andrus, JP Crawford, Matt Duffy. All these guys had pretty bad weeks, all in the negative WRC plus category. But I'm going to go with Brandon Marsh. I love Brandon Marsh. When he's on, I think he's fantastic. But this week, he was just putrid. 25 plate appearances. He had a slash line of a 125, 160, 167. He had a negative WRC plus, no home runs, scored 1 time, but he struck out 50% of the time. So, I mean, the others,
that. No, that's Christian Bethancourt status.
Awful. The others, Andrus, Crawford, Duffy, those guys had probably worse slash lines, but no one struck out 50% of the time. I think it was 44% for Marsh. Andrus had probably the worst week. He didn't strike out a single time. So congrats, Brandon Marsh. You are this week's LVP.
Congrats.
You certainly earned it by striking out almost 15 times. MVP, I'm not sure there's really a debate here. This guy faced 54 batters this past week, gave up 1 earned run. 1. So just keeps performing at an insanely high level. Totally unexpected if you followed his career, but that's Martin Perez. Struck out 11. Walked 3, just was so solid, man. I mean, just a fantastic performance from Martin this week, and what we've seen just pretty much this entire year. It's his second State of the Division MVP award, but Martin Perez just keeps performing again at just an insanely high level. So he is this week's MVP. LVP is going to go to a former MVP, and that's Reed Detmers. Barf, the guy had 2 starts in the week. He either struck out somebody or he gave up a home run. I mean, it seemed like that's the only thing he can really do. At least that's what it felt like. But he did give up he had 2 multi home run games, gave up 9 earned runs. He's had 5 multi home run games this year. LA is going to need a lot more from Detmers and a lot more from the rest of their pitching staff if they're going to regain any momentum and make any type of push. We mentioned earlier that Texas was 5 games out of the wild card. LA is only 6 games out, I think, maybe 8. I can't remember. So they're not out of it. I mean, we're not even up to the halfway point. 6 games back. We're not even to the halfway point. So things can still happen for both Texas and LA. But Angels are going to need a lot of help. Both teams are going to need a lot of help from their starting pitching outside of their studs. So, all right, that's all I got for MVP, LVP. What else do you got for us to wrap this thing up?
I think pitching wise, I think LA is in a better spot than Texas because I think LA has established pitchers like.
Sure. Yeah.
And the Rangers have a bunch of youth and Martin Perez.
Yeah, right.
So, and Dane Dunning has been horrific on the road. So it's like he's either okay or bad, So anyway, card buy of the week. I actually have a couple of different guys that I was like, that's interesting. Nothing that really rose up to the top. I think at first I was looking at Jeremy Pena's cards and I'm like 122 when they were at 200 last, like a month ago. That's $80 down, so I think that's 40% down, I think. So I'm looking at that and I'm wondering if that's a good buy or whether they were just so inflated that now they're kind of coming back to earth. And so
Yeah,
I
and the
still
card
think it
market,
is. Yeah, I still think it is a good buy though, because of where you see other people in his, I guess, weight class. But that's not exactly where I wanted to go. I think these three guys are interesting buys right now, and they're all fairly cheap. Denzer Guzman is a shortstop in the Angels organization, playing pretty well, but not a power guy. That's where I would say like everything seems to be going well for him. His complex league stats are out of this world, but of course it's the complex league, and I didn't even want to even name any of them because of what it is. And then Colin Barber is an outfielder in the Astros system, very cheap autos. Like $10 at the most, maybe. And he's the number 3 prospect in that Houston organization and has pretty good stats. I like what Colin Barber is doing. I've actually been buying Colin Barber since December, and Aram told me one time, who is Colin Barber and why are you buying his autos? And I still am going to say, I think he's good enough that it's worth a $5 to $10 purchase. And then my third one is, we haven't talked about him yet, and I think he's an all-star. And his autos are like $4 to $5 is Jonah Heim. I don't like investing in catchers, but he has taken the catcher position from Mitch Garver. Like, I think that Mitch Garver is in trouble because like we're paying him a ton of money and now he's injured. And like, now I would think that the Rangers are just looking at Jonah and they're like, you're clearly what we thought Garver was going to be. And so I have an out of 99 green Jonah Heim auto that I bought for $11. And I'm just saying, I think that's a good buy now because I just bought him for my PC. Yeah. But I do think he is worth investing in because I think he's going to be a guy who's going to be around for a while.
Love it. Love it. Good stuff. All right. That wraps up our State of the Division AL West edition, episode 10. Congrats to us for making it this far. Who knows if we'll be back next week or they'll fire us. Happy birthday to JB.
If you're listening to this today, then we have 25% off on our merch channel with the discount code that T came up with, HBDJB. So happy birthday, Just Baseball 20. So
creative genius. Maybe they'll keep me around for the discount codes.
Yeah. I still want to know what your pink and blue hair looked like. So
I washed it all.
It looks
out.
Well conditioned, my friend.
All right. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week. Have a great week. Enjoy your baseball. See ya.
Adios.